What's going on, TraxNEWS? I'm going to give you the general perspective of what's been going on in this world that you should be aware of. I haven't been around for a while, but I've been observing, and I want to give you some information that's relevant. I've been observing what's happening, and I've been focusing on business, but I'm giving you an update today. So, of course, you got the national debt clock with what's going on. $3.4 trillion in revenue, 6.7 in spending, leaving us with $3.2 trillion, increasing the money supply. Now, when you want to keep track of the money supply, you're going to see the money supply chart, but the money supply chart has been discontinued. Why has it been discontinued? Because they don't want you to know the money supply. They don't want to panic the public. But whether you want to panic the public or not, things are going to happen. And that's in play, and that leads to, what it leads to is social pressure. The worst thing that could happen in this country is that it cannot finance its operations because it's destroyed its currency. I don't even want to think about that. That's not even worth thinking about. But if we could avert that crisis with the appropriate productivity, that would be great. If not, you're in for a real change in the world. What is that change going to look like? Well, it's going to look like more of what's happening already. A veteran, officer could have mistaken a Glock for a taser, so somebody got shot. There's all sorts of, police and society under pressure. And then the policing and all this other stuff is obviously turning into sometimes murder and a variety of horrifying situations. Then, of course, you have the Park police officer who, the Capitol police officer who was killed in another attack. You don't hear that much about that. I'm not going to go into the details of all of those things. They're just happening because society's under pressure. Quality of life is being harder and harder to attain. Factors from every direction, you're being nickeled and dimed, right? Student debt, all-time high. Housing prices too expensive, loans not being given out, people falling behind, going crazy, attacks on Asians, in the streets. And that's all because of the virus, or partly because of the virus. This would have happened after some time, but it's happening now because the virus is expediting all of it. The thing about the virus is that, if you are in a common mind state, like so many people, even my father, I got the vaccine, I got this, I got that. The vaccine, all these measures, even social distancing, are going to leave us with the strongest version of the virus, the one that could beat the vaccine, the one that could beat even social distancing. It spreads farther. It does more of this. It does more of that. The way you want to look at the virus is that, in order to hit that version of the virus, you have to. It's like hitting the lotto. The only problem is we bought a lot of lotto tickets with every person that's infected in the world, so we're probably going to hit that lotto several times. And that's going to leave us with, if you want me to predict your future as best as I can, a decent summertime where the vaccine works against some of the strains. And then, back to a winter time where we're dealing with the worst version of this raging beast. And what happens after that, we don't know. We cannot afford to shut down the economy ever again. I don't know if we could afford to shut it down to begin with. But they took these measures, so that's the general scheme. Who's in charge of solving this type of problem? Well, let's say here in the U.S. It's certainly not Joe Biden because he's somewhat incapacitated. Now, there's someone behind the strings that's behind the curtain pulling the strings, and that individual or group of individuals not doing a particularly horrible job. They're moving quickly on infrastructure investment. They have to create the wealth. They know that. And they're making these moves, which is definitely good, right? Those moves, I'm somewhat impressed because they might have a chance to save the economy. Then you have the global affairs, Putin, China, and all their positioning, and democracy in decline. What does that spell? That spells if you grew up in the 90s or the 80s and even in the early 2000s, really after 9/11, everything went somewhat south, because I'll talk about that some other time. But, you cherish that time in your heart in a peaceful world ran by World War II veterans that, did the right thing and believed in, common interest and things like that. That time is gone. Cherish it in your heart because there's a new time coming. a time of self-interested, mostly I would call them evil, I guess, people, making the choices, and nothing good could come from bad choices. So the general arc of what I'm saying, I'm protecting my business, I'm protecting my life, I'm trying to do the right assets. The only thing that I could really safely guard myself from this virus is a KN95 mask. It's been effective for me for over a year in a variety of different situations, my filters and things like that, which sadly isn't on for audio purposes, but the bottom line is this: you have to protect yourself and you have to be aware. The news is going to tell you about shootings and killings when it suits their narrative, but there's a bigger picture at play. And as usual, you could comment your thoughts, comment your perspective, comment your opinion. The purpose being is that with the news and what's happening, you want to get a perspective on what is really happening in this world. That's what you want from this information. And what's really happening is a world sadly in decline and being pushed further, right? The world is hanging off a cliff and coronavirus is stomping on our fingers as hard as it can, making it that much more difficult to crawl over the edge. If we fall as a collective whole, I just told you what's going to happen. More shootings, more killings, more people, more violence, more people falling behind. People that have experienced this inflation and all this other stuff, whether it's El Salvador or whatever, those people are running for their lives trying to get to America. I know the feeling with the Soviet Union collapse. And you have all this displacement, and if that weighs down this country's like a lifeboat. I jumped in the lifeboat, that's great. But if enough people jump in the lifeboat, it's not a lifeboat anymore. It's just another boat that sinks. And, I'm not here to begrudge anybody who wants to climb in. But that's just a reality. I might have to find another lifeboat. I don't know. I have to fight for this lifeboat, make sure it doesn't sink as best I can, but I'm just one person trying to do my part. What can we all do? Well, you can, think the truth, share the truth, and be level-minded and just play your part. That's the best you can do. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. If you have a farm in Iowa, the world is going to pass you by and all these problems are going to come and go. All right? But if you're stuck in the cities and here and there, you're going to have to deal with the brunt of it, and you should mentally prepare yourself and your family and guide your life, because this process is going to take 5 years, going to take 10 years, but by the end of it, things are going to be ugly, and where you're going to be is where you're going to be. I'm going to be in the right place as best as I can manage to get there.